Nice bass for you right there, guys.
Let's go.
Good fish. Good fish right there. Alright guys, this video is for the guys that don't have LiveScope. If you have LiveScope, just move along, move along. I'm going to show you guys how to win tournaments without LiveScope using one lure, one pattern. You might not have LiveScope, might not afford it, might not be able to justify it, might not even want it, but you still can compete in bass tournaments without it. And I'm going to show you how to crack the code and you could beat LiveScope with one lure and one pattern. Super easy pattern. Fishing lay down trees with jigs. Lay down trees hold a lot of fish and they hold some of the biggest fish in the lake. There's a lot of small nuances in how to fish those trees to get the most out of them, not leave anything behind, and put yourself in the best position to win a bass tournament. Or just have a great day on the water bass fishing without LiveScope. Now, if you're still watching and you do have LiveScope, you could use LiveScope doing this too. You could probably make the experience a lot better too. You could actually tell what's in every tree for how many fish, where they're hiding in the tree, and all that. But if you don't have it, I'm gonna break it down for you and show you how to make it a lot easier to catch those fish. If you don't know, a lay down tree, that's exactly what it is. It's a tree that fell into the lake from the shoreline. I found the best way to find these trees is just put eyes on the shoreline. A couple things I look for, obviously you look for the tree like this one behind me. If you see those are obvious. Most guys are gonna fish those anyway. A lot of times you can only see, if the tree's laying flat, you can only see the trunk. And sometimes, if it's deep enough water, all you can see is that trunk coming up where it broke off. And that's all there is. And that tree might be completely submerged underwater. Those are really good ones to look for. Now, if you're on a lake with a lot of different blowdowns and you're pre-spawn, you're gonna wanna look at the staging areas, the pre-spawn staging areas just outside those spawning beds and spawning grounds for laydown trees where those fish are gonna stage up. Without even being on a lake, first time on it, no pre-fishing, you can find the right trees to win a tournament. If you want shallow trees, it's super easy. Look for the trees that come way out in the water and you can still see the tops on them. If you want deep trees, look for the trees that you're not seeing any branches at all. The branches are on the bottom and all you're seeing is the trunk up against the bank. You could use different lures for this pattern. You could throw your Texas rigs, you could throw your square bills, you could wind a chatterbait in around there. But for me, for big fish, for making sure they stay on, for getting those big bites, jig and pig has been the way for me over the years. And it's one of my favorite ways to fish. Techniques, there are several different techniques to get your jig to those fish. You could skip, you could pitch, you can cast, you can roll cast, you could back cast. There's 100 different ways to do it. Work with what's comfortable for you and what you can get your lure into the juice. Now, 9.5 out of 10 of these videos, fishing laydowns, are gonna tell you guys to be careful, fish the outside of the tree first, work every limb first. I'm not going to tell you that. If you want to win a tournament, go after those big fish. And most of the time, those big fish are on the trunk of the tree where it meets the water or where that first split is or where it's touching the ground. So it's further in. You know, and a lot of guys say don't throw further in because if you catch one in there and you pull one out, it's going to spook everything. We don't care about the small fish. If you're fishing for a limit, work your way in. If you're fishing for big fish, go right to the juice first. Don't spook those big fish and let them know what's up by catching all those little dinks on the way in, or the smaller fish. That's a good one. That's a good fish. That's big. That is the one we're looking for, and that's why we fish trees right there, guys. You want to win tournaments without a LiveScope? That's how you do it right there. Nice bass for you right there, guys. That's a good one right there. That one probably go in the box today. Nice fish. I like using fairly light jig for this, which I would consider a 3/8 ounce jig. I go up as much as 1/2 ounce and down to as low as 1/4 for this application. But 3/8 seems to be the best, anywhere from you know, 10 foot of water or less where most of those lay down trees are gonna be. I pretty much stick to 2 different colors. I'll throw a black and blue, and I'll throw something natural like a green pumpkin orange, green pumpkin, or green pumpkin red, depending on the water clarity. And a lot of times those fish will tell you what they want. If you're fishing this pattern, make sure you got at least 2 jigs tied on, maybe 3. You're gonna lose a few, you're gonna get some hung up, and you don't wanna miss out on the bite by not having something rigged up to quickly get it back in there. Some of these trees will hold multiple fish and a lot of fish. Some will hold 2 big ones, 1 big one. So be meticulous, work those trees when you're fishing them. After you fish that juice for the big one, work your way out and fish every limb. That fish might not be in the spot where you think he's gonna be, and he might be cruising around that tree. So don't be afraid to make multiple casts in the same location. One mistake a lot of guys make is they'll fish these trees too fast. They'll get that cast in there, let it drop, don't, you know, lift it up once, don't feel anything, wind it back in, flip to another limb. Well, in the meantime, that fish has been, if he was 4 or 5 feet away, is going over to where you landed, maybe where you kicked up a little bit of silt, maybe where you heard your jig, and he's going to investigate where that crawfish is or where that prey animal is, and you've already wound it out of there and put it over here. Now he's gonna go over there, you wound it out, and you're playing a game of keep away when you don't wanna be playing a game of keep away. You wanna be catching that fish. So work the trees, work it slow. You'll get a feel for your prime real estate once you catch a couple fish, and let the fish tell you where they're gonna be. You know, it's kind of day to day. Sometimes they're way in on the bank, sometimes they're way out on the tips. So once you figure that out, you can pattern this on just about every tree on the lake. Use the wind and the sun to your advantage. 99% of these fish are gonna be laying in the shade, on the shady side of the tree, looking into the areas that are lit for those prey animals. Your prey species are gonna get out, sun themselves, get out, move around the limbs, and they're easy picking for those fish that are hiding in there. Big bass and bass hide in these trees because it gives them ambush points. It gives them safety of cover, and they're just really cool places for them to swim. If I was a bass, I'd be swimming inside these lay down trees. Couple things to look for. There are multiple species of trees here in Maine where I'm fishing, probably where you live too, on the water. My favorite ones to fish for big bass are your hardwoods, your oaks, your maples, your ash trees, any of those trees that have a lot of limbs. They have some funky limb patterns on them, and they hold up and they last a long time. There's trees in Maine that I've fished for 25 years, the same exact tree, and it still hasn't deteriorated. Your softwood trees will hold fish, but for some reason they just don't hold them quite as well. They deteriorate quicker. I've heard that the pine needles put out a lot more acid and the fish don't like being in them, or the bait fish don't like being in them. I don't know that, so I'm not gonna tell you guys that, but I can tell you that I have done better for tournament fish in hardwood trees rather than your softwood trees like pine and hemlock. Now, if that's all they have for cover, they're gonna go in those. I would never overlook them, and I'm gonna fish every laydown in front of me and be able to tell you which ones fish better. Wind on these trees create a ton more oxygen, creates a lot more chaos under the water for the prey species, and it just creates a feeding frenzy for those big bass. So don't shy away from the wind on these trees. Boat position is super, super important. I like to approach all the trees that I can from the downwind angle so the wind isn't blowing me into the tree. It's important to keep your boat back away from the tree. If you obviously, if you don't have LiveScope or whatever, shut your electronics off. Keep the noise down, put your trolling motor on low, make a little bit longer casts, a little bit longer flips, a little bit longer skips and pitches. If you approach it on the high wind side, more than likely that wind's gonna blow you in if you aren't utilizing power poles. If the sun's low, if you're early in the morning or late in the afternoon, don't come between the sun and your target with your body or your boat, because that's gonna be a dead giveaway that you're there and spook the fish. You're gonna make a shadow that's gonna spook that fish. So remember, throw to the heart of the tree first for those big fish and work your way from the inside out. No one else is gonna tell you that. Everybody's gonna tell you to throw from the outside in. If I'm fun fishing, I'll probably work from the outside in, or if I wanna see what's there, I'll work from the outside in, so you're not getting hung up early, or so you're keeping your chances of getting hung up. You're not gonna spook a bunch of fish pulling them from the inside out. But if you're trying to win a tournament, go for the juice. Worry about the outside afterwards. If you find a good tree that's holding fish, work that tree. There could be multiple good tournament fish in that tree. You know, and if you do spook them out of there, if you catch one and it's flopping around the branches a bunch and jumping inside the tree and you think it's spooking the other ones out, all you gotta do is just pull your boat out, wait a couple minutes, and let those fish reposition in that tree and go after them. It's kind of a patience game. You know, you're not going to chase, you're trying to win a tournament here, so know that you're going to hit anywhere from 5 to 50 trees in the course of a given tournament. So if you keep that in mind and you're going to stick to your pattern, then you know you got to be patient with it, and you got to clean everything off those trees if you want to beat LiveScope. And don't be afraid to go back to any given tree, especially the ones that produce, because those ones will reload and those bigger fish will move in where you've taken fish out of. There's prime real estate on all these trees, and if you take a 4 or 5 pounder out of that prime real estate, it's not going to sit long before another one moves in, and you can come back in an hour or 2 hours later and make the same exact cast and put another fish in the box or make a cull. If you get time to pre-fish, obviously you want to go out, you want to find which types of trees you want to fish, you want to find the depth they're in, and then you want to do your map study and learn where they are on the lake. Are they on points? Are they on primary points? Are they on secondary points? Are they in spawning grounds? Are they outside of spawning grounds? Are they around lily pads? Are they around dock? And then you could run your pattern and really refine that pattern down to a winning pattern as the day progresses. And the other cool thing about this pattern is you got a winning bait in your hand. A jig and pig is a big fish lure. And if you're just on your trolling motor between trees, you know, you might hit a dock, you might see a stick up, you might see another target or another piece of structure you could flip that jig to in between your tree pattern and pick up a kicker fish on one of those. If you have power poles, that's a huge help with your boat control. If you don't, you can still do it. Just play the wind. And don't be afraid if other boats have hit trees in front of you. Like I said, you pull one out of the prime real estate, another one's gonna move into that prime spot. If you're in a tournament, one line only per person, maybe you're fishing with a partner and you get hung up, take the L for yourself and sacrifice. Rather than go in there with a boat, mess up the whole tree with the trolling motor and the boat, just stand there with a net in your hand and let your partner flip to those other trees until he either catches one, gets hung up, or you're done fishing it before you go in to get your jig, or you could just break off, retie, and get back in there fishing. But the worst thing you could do is blow that tree out and ruin it with the trolling motor or the boat. I like jigs with real strong weed guards, especially when I'm working trees. If I'm fishing out offshore, structure, rocks, shell beds, gravel bars, or even docks, I don't really care so much for a weed guard. I like a little bit weaker one for that. But when I'm fishing trees, I want to have a jig that's got the strongest weed guard I can get. And I might even super glue half that weed guard together coming off the head to strengthen it more, because it's really important that you're working that jig over limbs. You know, you bring it up, your line might be over a limb, you bring your jig up, you tap that limb 4, 5, 6 times, bring it over, drop it down to the bottom again, bring it back over another limb, drop it down again. So the weed guard's really important that you're not getting hung up, ruining your cast, ruining your tree, and ruining your chance to win a tournament. And another thing is, use your imagination under the surface. You know, without using LiveScope, you don't know where the top of that tree is. So if you're driving by the bank and you see a stump or a tree broken off and you don't see it laying against the shoreline, well, chances are it's in the water. If you don't see where it is in the water from the surface, there's a pretty good chance it's right out in front of that stump. So fish your way in, you know, use that jig to feel what's down there and use your imagination to find that tree if you're not using LiveScope. And make sure you're cycling on these trees in a tournament. You know, the trees are definitely going to fish better when the sun's up, because it gives those fish a place to hide. They don't want to be sitting out in the sun. So it gives them a really good ambush point, gives them a place to hide. So if you fish a bank that doesn't have the sun on it early and you pick up a couple fish in trees, don't be afraid to go back there later in the day and see what's moved in since the sun's been up and those fish want to get in there in the shade of the tree. And if you could find hardwood trees that still have their branches on them, absolute fire. Some trees that I've done okay on are your birch trees, your beech trees, and some of the scraggly maples. I've done okay on those. They're not like my prime ones because they don't really have a lot of limbs for those fish to hide in. You know, the perfect combo is leaves, a lot of limbs, and a big trunk for them to hide under or next to. But if you don't have it, that fish is going to cozy up to the best possible spot he can get. So hit every target you can and fish as many trees as you can. Of course, line is really important too. So I like anywhere from a minimum of 15-pound test, but I like 17 to 20, even 25-pound, depending on clarity, because you know it's going to be hand-to-hand combat with those fish in and amongst trees, branches, limbs, and everything else after you hook them. They're going to try to dig in and you want to get them out. Another thing about throwing that jig in these trees is you definitely want to do it on a little bit of a taut line as it's sinking so you can feel that bite. You don't want that fish picking up that jig and running 5, 10, 15 feet before you feel it, before you see your line move, or before you set the hook, because it gives them a chance to wrap around multiple branches and get you into a lot of trouble. So pay close attention, a lot of patience, be meticulous, pick it apart, and give yourself the best chance to beat LiveScope, win a tournament without LiveScope. Hope this video helped you guys. If you made it this far, you know what to do. Really appreciate all the support for the channel and love to hear how you guys do in the comments.